The only real danger that has ever existed is man himself. I said that near the end of my life, and I meant it as a warning. Not the danger out in the world, the danger in here, inside you, inside all of us. So let me begin with a question that may unsettle you. What if you are not who you think you are? What if the thoughts you call yours, the decisions you make, the desires that feel so deeply personal, did not entirely originate with you? What if there is a force inside you, silent, deep and dark, that has been steering your life since the first day without your ever noticing? This is not a conspiracy, it is psychology. And if there is one map you need in order to understand what is truly happening inside your own mind, it is the one I spent my life drawing. Are you tired of repeating the same mistakes? Of quietly sabotaging your relationships? Of feeling something pulling you down, even when everything on the surface looks fine? Perhaps it is your shadow. Perhaps it is the archetypes. Perhaps it is the collective unconscious calling for your attention. Because to ignore these parts of yourself is to walk blindfolded through a minefield. You will be wounded. You will repeat the patterns. You will suffer. And worst of all, you will call it bad luck. You will call it fate. What I am about to give you is not a biography. It is not a summary. It is a mirror. And I am going to show you what you have spent years refusing to look at. But be warned, once you understand these ideas, there is no going back. You will begin to see what was always there and never noticed. You will recognize the monsters that live inside you. And perhaps, for the first time, you will understand that the greatest enemy of your life was never out there. It was within. The good news is this: that same enemy can become your greatest ally, but only if you have the courage. So breathe and prepare yourself, because after this, you will never look at yourself the same way again. I was no ordinary psychologist. I had no interest in merely silencing symptoms or in adjusting people to fit comfortably into a sick society. I wanted to go deeper, far deeper. I wanted to understand the human soul. I was born in Switzerland in 1875, into a world of religious symbol and ritual, an atmosphere thick with silence and mystery. From my earliest years, I sensed that there was something more in human experience than logic and words could ever hold. So perhaps it was no accident that I became the brightest of Freud's students, and then the one who dared to break with him. Freud believed that nearly everything in the human mind turned around repressed sexual desire. I saw something else. I saw depths. I saw symbols and myths and ancient collective forces. Where Freud looked back into your immediate past, your childhood, your family, I looked back thousands of years into the ancestral roots of our very existence. And so the rupture between us was unavoidable. I did not want only to treat illness. I wanted to restore the connection a human being has lost with their own essence. I came to see the psyche as a living, dynamic system full of opposing tensions, light and shadow, reason and emotion, the masculine and the feminine. And I came to believe that suffering is not an error in existence. It is a call to transformation. I gave this way of seeing a name: analytical psychology, a path that does not try to erase what is wrong in you, but to understand it, to integrate it, to make conscious what you have rejected and hidden and denied. Because for me, the true enemy was never suffering. The true enemy is unconsciousness. And why does this still matter? Because your society is still sick. People remain trapped in destructive patterns. They go on ignoring their emotions, numbing their emptiness, fleeing their pain. I not only foresaw this, I offered a way through it, a map that leads inward, a chance to understand why you feel so disconnected and what it would take to come home. And here is one of the most disturbing truths I ever brought to the world. There is a layer of the human mind that is not yours alone. It is shared by all of humanity. Most people are certain that their thoughts, their fears, their feelings are uniquely their own, the private product of their childhood, their culture, their personal memory. I challenged that completely. Beneath the personal mind lies a far older and more powerful layer, one that does not belong to you and yet still governs you. I called it the collective unconscious. Imagine your own mind as a small island. Everything you have lived, every memory, every wound, every story you tell about yourself sits on that island. But beneath it stretches a vast, dark ocean shared by every human being who has ever lived. And in that ocean swim symbols and images and patterns formed across tens of thousands of years. Ancient myths, primordial figures, forces that existed long before you were born and that still move within you, shaping how you think and love and suffer. This is not a pretty metaphor. It is a psychic reality. It surfaces in your dreams, your fantasies, your religions, the films that move you to tears, the stories that have survived for centuries. It is the reason civilizations that never once met, separated by oceans and ages, invented strikingly similar myths. The hero, the wise elder, the monster, the journey, the redemption. These are not mere cultural inventions, they are reflections of the very structure of the human soul. So when you feel the fear of being abandoned, you are touching something ancestral. When you feel the deep hunger to belong, to find meaning, to overcome yourself, you are being moved by forces present since the dawn of our kind. To ignore this layer is to ignore gravity. You may pretend it is not there, but it will pull you down all the same. It will manifest in your relationships, your choices, your repetitions, until you finally understand that you are not only wrestling with your own ghosts, you are wrestling with the ghosts of all humanity. If this is reaching something in you, subscribe to this channel so the rest of this map can find you. So who exactly lives in those depths? Begin with the one you fear most. Have you ever done something you later deeply regretted and could not even explain why? Have you ever exploded at someone and afterwards said, "I don't know what got into me"? Have you ever felt envy or jealousy or pride and chosen to look away from it rather than face it? Then you have already met your shadow. You simply lack the courage to look at it directly. Every human being carries a dark side, a rejected, repressed, denied part, made of everything you do not wish to admit lives in you. Your most shameful impulses, your unacceptable desires, your weakness, your arrogance, your cruelty, your neediness, your vanity, your rage, All of it lives inside you, and the harder you press it down, the stronger it grows. The shadow is everything you had to hide in order to be accepted, everything you had to suffocate in order to fit in. It is the child who was pruned, the adult who learned to smile while crumbling inside. And here is the brutal part. Whatever you do not face in your shadow begins to run your life from beneath the surface. It does not disappear. It disguises itself. It shows up in the harsh judgments you pass on others, in the anger that erupts for no reason, in the shame that freezes you, in the quiet inner voice that insists you are not good enough, in the self-sabotage that arrives always at the most important moment. And here is the cruelest turn of all. The more convinced you are that you are simply a good person, the more dangerous your shadow becomes, because you refuse to recognize your own anger, your own envy, your own selfishness, and so you cast them outward onto the world. You begin to see evil everywhere, in everyone, except in yourself. I said it as plainly as I knew how. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So long as you keep pretending the shadow is not there, it will rule you. You will repeat the same patterns. You will choose the people who wound you. You will sabotage your own chances and flee from love, from success, from freedom, because somewhere deep down you have decided you do not deserve them. But there is another way. You can confront this darkness, not to destroy it, but to integrate it. Because the shadow is not only destruction, it also holds power. It contains a raw energy that, harnessed well, can transform you entirely. But to claim it, you must be willing to walk into dangerous ground, to face the parts of yourself you banished long ago. And it is in that confrontation that the true work of self-knowledge begins. I gave that work a name: individuation. Most people spend their entire lives trying to fit in, pleasing their parents, meeting expectations, bending themselves to the standards their culture imposed. They mold, they distort, they numb themselves, all to avoid facing who they truly are. And underneath it all sits an emptiness, a quiet certainty that something essential is missing. I knew exactly what that was. It is the absence of individuation. Individuation is not cheap comfort. It is not about becoming your best self or summoning abundance. It is the brutal, demanding, profound process of becoming a whole human being. The confrontation with your own shadow. The integration of the opposites within you. The reconnection with your soul. It is ceasing to be only a mask, the persona, and beginning to discover the true self that has been living behind it all along. To individuate is to die to who you thought you were, so that something more authentic can be born. It is the collapse of the ego, the breaking of your illusions. It is discovering that you are neither as good as you wished, nor as bad as you feared. That you are light and darkness, strength and fragility, courage and cowardice, all at once. And here is what no one warns you. This process hurts, because it requires you to release the lies you built in order to survive. It demands that you stop blaming everyone else and take responsibility for your own life. It asks you to stop living to be accepted and start living to be whole. Individuation does not arrive all at once. It reveals itself through crises, through losses, through ruptures. Each time something in you dies, a belief, a relationship, an identity, something new is born in its place. I once said that the encounter with the self is, by its very nature, a defeat for the ego. And I was right. Most people prefer not to walk this road. They choose the comfort of not knowing. But those who find the courage to face the darkness discover something beyond price: freedom. Because by integrating your rejected parts, by confronting your shadow, by listening to your soul, you finally become what you have always been and never dared to be. And the soul speaks. It speaks constantly. It simply does not use words. It speaks in symbols, in images, in stories, and above all, it speaks through your dreams. The modern world laughs at dreams, treating them as noise, as the random static of a sleeping brain. I went the opposite way. For me, dreams are the voice of the psyche. Not noise, messages, encoded, mysterious, symbolic, but never useless. Every night, something in you wakes and begins to speak. The trouble is that you were never taught to listen. I saw dreams as the unconscious trying to restore your inner balance. When your conscious life strays too far from your essence, the unconscious sends up images, scenes, symbols, everything it needs to pull you back toward the center. So your dreams are not mere recordings of the day. They are guidance, warnings, invitations. Consider it. Why do you dream of falling in the season when you are losing control of your waking life? Why do you dream of your teeth crumbling when you feel weakened? Why does the same symbol return night after night in dream after dream? This is no accident. It is the soul trying to reach you. But the soul does not speak in plain language. It speaks in symbols, and learning to read them is like learning an ancient tongue. A serpent, a house, a forest, a mirror, a door, a stairway. These do not appear by chance. They are pieces of your own psyche trying to surface. A house may stand for your inner self. A serpent may signal transformation. A stairway may point either to ascent or to a descent into the depths, depending on its direction. A mirror may be the reflection of the shadow you do not wish to see. The more you ignore these symbols, the further you drift from yourself. And when you lose the center of the soul, you become lost. You grow anxious, low, disoriented, because you have severed the connection to your own inner compass. Your dreams are that compass. To ignore them is to cover your eyes while walking through a maze. If you wish to know who you truly are, look at your dreams. Write them down. Sit with their symbols. They hold answers your waking mind could never put into words. But the dream is not the only thing that speaks in symbols. There is an older, deeper force that also moves through them. The archetypes. The invisible characters who live within you, the true directors of the theater of your life. Have you ever caught yourself behaving as though you were not yourself, repeating a pattern whose origin you cannot trace, attracting again and again the same kind of person, the same kind of pain, the same kind of story? I knew exactly why this happens. Within you live psychic characters who do not merely influence your decisions. They stage your life. The archetypes are universal structures of the psyche. They are not ideas you learned. They are ancestral patterns that were born with you, as old as humanity itself, residing in the collective unconscious. There is the hero, the force in you that strives to overcome, to face the great challenge. the wise one who seeks knowledge and truth, the shadow which you now know, the anima and the animus, the feminine within the man and the masculine within the woman, energies that must be integrated for you to become whole. And these archetypes are not gentle abstractions. They carry energy. When one of them takes command of your psyche, it possesses you, quite literally. It seizes the wheel of your consciousness and drives your life without asking your permission. That is why you sometimes act like a stranger to yourself, why certain relationships pull you into a script that seems written in advance. The one who saves everyone around them while quietly destroying themselves is often possessed by the hero. The one who chases approval, terrified of rejection, may be trapped in the archetype of the wounded child. The one forever drawn toward chaos and ruin is likely ruled by an unintegrated shadow. But hear this clearly. These archetypes are not your enemies. Unconscious, they enslave you. Recognized and integrated, they empower you. They are keys and doorways. The moment you begin to recognize which of them is speaking inside you, you begin to take back the authorship of your own story. You stop being merely a character in the play and become the one who writes it. And it is precisely here that all of this becomes urgent, because you live in an age that pulls you relentlessly outward, away from your own depths. You have access to everything at every hour, and yet you have never been so lost. Your modern world promised freedom and delivered anxiety. It promised connection and drowned you in empty comparison. And underneath the constant noise, one silenced question screams inside millions of people. Who am I, really? This is exactly where my work becomes more necessary than ever. I never offered ready-made formulas. I never sold happiness in a pill or success through positive thinking. What I offered was something far more powerful, a path back to the soul, a route of reunion with everything that has been forgotten, suffocated, distorted by a culture obsessed with productivity, appearance, and performance. I foresaw this collapse of identity. I saw how modern man would be consumed by the persona, the mask worn to be accepted, admired, promoted. I knew that by ignoring the shadow, you become a slave to the very forces you pretend not to have. That by rejecting your dreams, you cut the bridge to your own unconscious. I wrote this long ago, and yet it reads as though it describes this exact moment. People who feel empty in the middle of their achievements, relationships growing ever more shallow and disposable, existential crisis arriving in people barely out of their youth, waves of anxiety and depression that the world struggles to soothe but rarely pauses to truly understand. The modern world sold you the illusion that you can live forever on the surface, but the soul will not be ignored for long. And when it finally cries out, it does not ask for applause. It asks for meaning, for depth, for integration. I was never a guide for times of peace. I was a guide for times of collapse, times like yours. Because when everything outside loses its meaning, the status, the success, the control, the only direction left is inward. And that inner descent is frightening, because down there you will not find only light. You will meet your monsters, your traumas, your masks, your most painful truths. But you will also find the one thing no one else can ever give you, your true self. You spent your whole life trying to fit in, to protect yourself, to belong. You pretended to be strong while you were in pieces. You smiled while everything inside you screamed for help. And somewhere along that road, you forgot who you were. You forgot your own essence, your mystery, your creative chaos, your soul. But something in you has begun to wake, and it is no accident that you are here. I believed that nothing happens purely by chance, that even the most accidental encounters are the unconscious trying to show you something. Perhaps these words have been exactly that. A call to stop running, to stop lying to yourself, to leave the surface at last and descend into your own depths. What I teach is not easy to hear, because it asks for courage, for pain, for responsibility. But it is also the most liberating thing there is, because the moment you understand that you are not broken, only unconscious, you gain a power that nothing can take from you. The power to transform, to integrate, to heal. You do not need to understand all of it tonight. You do not need to decode every dream or name every archetype. You need only take the first step, the step of honesty, the step of saying, enough. Enough of living on automatic. Enough of denying my own pain. Enough of being the prisoner of a shallow version of myself. From this moment, everything changes, because now you know, and what has once been seen can never again become invisible. So, before you go, tell me in the comments, which of these ideas confronted you the most? Which truth struck the hardest? Which part of your own shadow you know in your bones that you have been avoiding? Because simply putting it into words is already an act of bringing light into the dark. And that is where liberation begins. And stay for the next video. The descent does not end here, and a soul, once awakened, always wants more.